These tariffs are also creating a lot of uncertainty, especially for farmers. Merle Massie grows grain, oilseeds, and pulses. She's also the executive director of the Do More Agriculture Foundation. It promotes mental well-being for those in the Canadian agriculture industry, and we've reached her in Biggar, Saskatchewan. Merle, thanks for joining us. And how will your farm be affected by these tariffs?
Hi, Ian. Thanks so much for having me. Yes, our farm will absolutely be affected. Farmers always think about costs and prices, right? So what we receive from what we sell, and then what we need to purchase in order to produce what we produce. And so we're expecting and we're braced to see costs rise on the one side and prices fall on the other.
And what are other farmers in Biggar saying? I assume you've been chatting with them, and what sort of concerns are they raising?
We're braced right across everywhere. My brother-in-law actually also, and my father-in-law also have a herd of beef cattle. And those of us who raise beef cattle, although the prices in the last while have been quite high, we know that with the tariffs, what happens is that if you take a look at Alberta, for example, beef cattle can actually cross over that border multiple times. They might be born in Canada, moved down into Montana, raised on some of the grasslands in Montana, come back into Feedlot Alley in Alberta, and then cross the border again. And so if there's tariffs on it, every time that beef crosses the border, the prices are going to rise. But that doesn't mean that the prices that the farmer receives are going to rise. So lots to be braced for and lots to watch.
So for your farm, where you grow grain, pulses, and there was something else as well.
Oilseeds.
Yeah. So is there anything that you can be doing in terms of the products that you're growing or the markets you're directing them to ease the impact of the tariffs?
A couple of things that we've seen across the winter is that most farms that I know, whatever they had on hand, they were frantically looking to sell and take advantage of the market as best as they could in the last while. Certainly, we were out in some minus 25 weather, loading grain onto 5 semis that came in, across the evening. It was full dark, just to get everything loaded and sent out to take advantage as best as we could. The problem, though, is that the timing. So we're already into March. Farmers always plan their seeding on a multiple year plan. So it's making adjustments for the next coming year to say maybe plant a little less oilseed, a little less canola, and maybe a bit more of something else, that maybe something like wheat that maybe is going to be slightly, or predicted to be slightly less affected by the incoming tariffs, simply because the U.S. is not our largest importer of wheat. There's limits to what we can do. It's pretty late in the year. A lot of farmers I know are a month to 6 weeks ahead of seeding. We've already purchased our fertilizer. We've already purchased our seed and our chemicals. So there's not a lot of wiggle room to make those changes.
You are, as I mentioned, a mental health advocate. How do you think these tariffs, the uncertainty, the potential huge impact, how do you think that's affecting the mental well-being of farmers?
It's affecting every farmer I know, absolutely every single one. And of course, from the farm level, there's 3 issues that we deal with. Number one is that we do live within that farm culture, which means that we sort of have this idea of pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps and not talking about any of the problems that we might have. And that's sort of the first hurdle. The second, of course, is that most of us live in rural areas, so there's already limited mental health supports in those areas. So to reach out and to find someone who actually understands farming, that can be a challenge. And thankfully, there's been a lot of great work done in this area, and some wonderful provincial level groups that can help farmers to connect with provincial level therapists who understand farming, which is wonderful. We also have a brand new national crisis line, a farm crisis line that the Canadian Centre for Agricultural Wellbeing just launched a couple of weeks ago with partnership from FCC, so Farm Credit Canada. There's a great timing on making sure that this national level resource is out there. And so, there are provincial level crisis lines in place as well. And all of those crisis lines are well equipped to make sure that should a farmer need that extra help, that it's in place. Another piece of this, Ian, is that, of course, farmers already operate on very, very tight margins. And so something that we recommend is that farmers do pay attention to if they need to talk to FCC or AgriStability and to make some adjustments in terms of how much they owe, think through what costs they can shave, and what changes that they can make on that administrative and financial end to give them a little bit more of a buffer to withstand any of the shocks that we know are coming. And so those lines are all available as well. And farmers have been working on that end quite steadily. Because, of course, we're never just farmers. These aren't just businesses. These are also our livelihoods. And for many of us, they're multiple generation legacies. And so watching those tariffs come in, this is a once in 100-year tariff situation that we're facing. We're looking at what happened to the farms that we know back in the 1930s. And that's pretty scary.
Absolutely, and it's so true, whether it's a farm in Saskatchewan or a family-owned manufacturing plant in Ontario or fishers in Atlantic Canada. This is a story about businesses, but ultimately a story about Canadians. Merle, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thanks for having me.
Merle Massie, a grain, oil seeds, and pulses farmer in Biggar, Saskatchewan.